I am Mikhail Kutuzov, the defender of Russia. Patience and time. These are my warriors. I was born to serve Russia, to defend her against enemies who thought they could conquer the vast, untamed land that bore me. I fought for Catherine the Great, Paul the First, and Alexander the First. I bled in battles across Europe, faced the Ottoman Turks, the French, and above all, Napoleon Bonaparte himself. I saw empires rise and fall, commanders come and go. But I endured, and when the hour of destiny arrived, I was the one who stood against the might of France's grand army. I knew that brute force alone could not save Russia. Only patience, cunning, and the will to sacrifice could do that. They called me old. They called me cautious. But in the end, I was the one who led Russia to victory. This is my story. I was born Mikhail Illarionovich Golenischev Kutuzov on September 16, 1745, in St. Petersburg, into a noble but military family. My father was a respected general, and from my earliest days, I was surrounded by soldiers, strategy, and discipline. I entered the artillery and engineering school at the age of 12, one of the finest military academies in Russia. I had no choice but to excel. Here, I learned fortifications, tactics, and the art of command. I proved myself quick-witted, intelligent, and fearless, qualities that would define my life. At 19, I joined the army and saw my first real battles in the war against the Polish Confederation of Bar. It was my first taste of war, and I learned something crucial. Victory belongs not to those who rush blindly into battle, but to those who wait for the right moment to strike. Russia's great expansionist queen, Catherine the Great, had her eyes on the south, on the Ottoman Empire, which controlled the Black Sea. War broke out in 1768, and I was sent to fight. I served under Alexander Suvorov, the greatest general of our age, and from him, I learned the art of maneuver, deception, and relentless attack. He was a master of war, a whirlwind on the battlefield, and I followed him through the fields of Wallachia, Moldavia, and Bulgaria. In 1774, in battle against the Turks near the Danube, I was shot in the head. The bullet tore through my temple, and I should have died. But I did not. The doctors said I would never recover, that my mind would be broken. But I defied them. My body healed. My mind remained sharp, and my will was stronger than ever. It was the first time death tried to take me, but not the last. For the next 3 decades, I climbed the ranks of the Russian army. I fought in another war against the Turks, 1787 to 1792, once again by Suvorov's side. I took Ismail, a fortress once thought impregnable, and I led men with courage and wisdom. By 1792, I was a general. By 1794, I was commanding troops in Poland. I became a trusted advisor to the Tsars, a military governor, and a man who understood both war and politics. But war was coming again, and this time, the enemy was not the Turks, but the greatest general in Europe. The year was 1805. Napoleon Bonaparte had crowned himself Emperor of France, and his armies had crushed all who opposed him. Austria and Russia allied against him, and I was called to lead the Russian army alongside the Austrian forces. It was in the fields near Austerlitz that I met Napoleon for the first time in battle. I saw the genius of the man, but I also saw his arrogance. I advised caution. I warned that the ground was not in our favor, that the French were luring us into a trap. Tsar Alexander ignored me, and so, on December 2nd, 1805, we marched into Napoleon's perfect ambush. The Battle of Austerlitz was a disaster. The French crushed us. The Grand Army proved unbeatable on the open battlefield. I saw my men slaughtered, my allies flee, and my worst fears realized. It was then that I understood we could not defeat Napoleon in battle. We had to defeat him in war. 7 years later, in 1812, Napoleon made his fatal mistake. He invaded Russia with 600,000 men, the largest army the world had ever seen. He believed he could march to Moscow, crush us, and end the war. But he did not count on me. At Borodino, on September 7th, 1812, we made our stand. It was the bloodiest battle in Russian history, A terrible slaughter where the French won the field but lost the war. I refused to risk Russia's future in one final battle. I let Napoleon take Moscow, but when he arrived, he found a city in flames, stripped of supplies. He sat in the ruins, waiting for surrender. But Russia never surrendered. And then the winter came. Napoleon's army froze, starved, and died in the Russian snows. His mighty grand army was shattered, and as he retreated, I hunted him like a wolf. By the end of 1812, he fled Russia with only a fraction of his army remaining. By 1813, our forces joined the coalition of Austria, Prussia, and Britain. The final battles were fought, and Napoleon was defeated and sent into exile. Russia had won. I had won, and yet I would not live to see the final triumph. By the end of 1812, I was exhausted. The years of war, the wounds, and the hardships had taken their toll. I had led Russia through her greatest trial, and now my body, broken from years of battle, could endure no longer. I died on April 28, 1813, in Bunzlau, Silesia, modern-day Poland. My last words? I am at peace. I have done my duty. I was not the boldest commander, nor the most daring. I was not like Napoleon, Suvorov, or Frederick the Great. But I understood the soul of Russia. I knew that wars are not won by strength alone, but by endurance. I knew that Napoleon could win every battle, but he would lose the war if I forced him to fight against time, distance, and the Russian winter. And so, when Russia stood on the brink of ruin, I led her back to victory. They called me old, cautious, slow, but in the end, it was I who broke Napoleon. I am Mikhail Kutuzov, and I saved Russia.